Hello and welcome to episode 15 of the Sportscast podcast. This week, myself and Jordan will be going through the weekend's football, the Monzo Grand Prix, a look back at last night's boxing events in Manchester, US Open, a little bit of a look at the athletics that finished last week, and I look forward to some of the Ryder Cup. Another week. How are we?
Good. Yourself?
Yeah, very well.
What do you want to start with?
Should we get football out of the way?
Yeah.
Not been a very eventful weekend across sort of any part of the footballing world. Premier League, Spurs picked up a 5-2 win away at Burnley. Burnley have now lost 3 games this season, which is all they lost last year in the Championship as a whole.
Yeah.
But they were never going to come in and sort of really run away with anything. But Spurs surviving very well without Harry Kane.
Yeah.
Sheffield United Everton, probably the most exciting game of the weekend, 2-2. There was a bit in the game and Everton have got a free kick 25 yards out. Referee's marked out 10 yards, players have got there and he's drawn the white line on the floor. The Sheffield United players have moved forward, so the referee's gone over, told them to go back, but then because they wouldn't go back, just sprayed a new line, like 9 yards out. So the players are like, hang on a minute, and he's just, I mean, there was a lot of other calamity errors within the game from the referee.
Yeah.
But that is just, there's a line that's 10 yards, they've stepped ahead of it, and he's just gone, well, here's a new line. Well, it's clearly not 10 yards.
Yeah.
Absolutely horrific refereing. Brighton got a 3-1 win at Newcastle, which I think will be, for me, probably the game the teams that will be sort of around that 5th, 6th mark at the end of the season. So that's quite a big game.
It's like 4 or 5 years ago, you would have expected, obviously, Brighton in the Premier League, but 5 years ago, you would have expected that kind of scoreline from Newcastle United. But
Yeah.
like, given all the money they've had spent on them, and given like the hype train around Newcastle and how they performed last season, they're currently running in 14th after 4 games played. It's not a fantastic start to the season for them, is it?
No, they've had some tough games. They've already played Man City.
Yeah.
You know, they've not had it easy, but there's other parts of that game. I mean, Brighton they finished fairly high last year. What they've done in their player development has been incredible. That's why, you know, they've been buying these players for 5 million and selling them for 100 million.
Yeah.
Brighton are in a very, very good place as a club.
Whether that will turn out to be a good investment for
Any other team,
Yeah,
Chelsea mainly, but they're in a very, very good position. They've got the young, I can't remember if he's Northern Irish or Irish striker in Evan Ferguson, who's 18 years old, and he scored a hat-trick yesterday.
Yeah.
18 in the Premier League. I certainly wasn't doing that at 18-year-old. So, you know, he's going to be a fantastic player when he's older. Sunderland absolutely battered Southampton 5-0. There's a young player at Southampton. His first name escapes me. Surname's Riggs. And he's 16 years old. And
Wow.
he's been playing really, really well this season. And he scored yesterday.
Yeah.
So, 16-year-old scoring in the Championship as well. So, he's not exactly cutting it about in the Conference North or anything like that. He's in a top league. Preston 2-0 away at Stoke. That puts Preston at top of the league, and Wrexham won their derby with Tramley at 1-0. You had, for me, the most exciting game in football today in Rangers versus Celtic, which finished 1-0 to Celtic. Again, another game that how it finished 1-0 is absolutely beyond me. That game could have been 5-5, which most old firms can always finish that way as well. Arsenal Man United 3-1. It was 1-1 in the 85th minute. Man United scored. VAR took it out. It's 1-1 going into added on time. Arsenal scored in the 96th and 101st minute for 3-1.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Top of the Premier League, City. Bottom, Burnley. Preston, top of the Championship. Middlesbrough, bottom. Bit of surprise that Michael Carrick took him to the playoffs last year. Exeter, top of the League One. Cheltenham, bottom. Notts County, top of League Two, which I think is probably where they're going to stay for the rest of the year. Doncaster Rovers, bottom of the league.
Great. I saw an Instagram post from the stadium the Keepmoat Stadium in Doncaster, and I think the attendance is not the attendance, the capacity is around 15,500.
It's 15,001.
And there can't have been more than 3,000.
Well, they claim they get around 7,000 a game.
Okay.
But you if you sell 3,000 season tickets,
Yeah.
and for whatever reason half of them don't turn up, you've already got yourself guaranteed 3,000 seats.
Yeah.
So however many season tickets they've sold, they'll never go below that, whether they turn up or not.
Yeah.
So it never. I've been at Keepmoat numerous of. It's not in Keepmoat anymore, it's Eco Power Stadium, but I've spent many games there. I've had season tickets in the past, and I've been there on a Tuesday night where they said that tonight's attendance 8,000, and
Yeah.
you want to put it much more than 3.
Yeah.
So it can be a bit deceiving.
Yeah. Another Premier League hat-trick for Haaland. Had a cracking start to the season already.
Yes, he did pick one up. Yeah, he didn't score in the first game, but then he's just gradually brought his way into it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to finish top goal scorer. There's no one going to get close to him this year.
Yeah.
That's a fact. Couple of little bits really that I picked up. Obviously, Man United have closed the transfer window. The biggest spend ever, over £2 billion in the transfer window spent by
Yeah.
Premier League club. Spurs picked up Brennan Johnson from Nottingham Forest. Even as a Welshman, I'm not sure on that signing. Doesn't really seem to have done much in the past 12 months for Forest. Man United got Amberat, which is what they were looking for on initial loan, but they'll once they've got the funds, they'll buy him next year. I think they
Yeah.
just need to get rid of McTominay and Maguire.
Yeah.
Spurs seem to be playing better without Harry Kane.
Yeah.
Not struggling for goals. What are your thoughts on this? I mean,
You've always, unless you are a world-class player, and Harry Kane is an extremely good player, don't get me wrong, would I say he's world-class? I don't know. When you compare him to genuine players who I think are world-class, Messi, Ronaldo, obviously the two that spring to mind. Zlatan Ibrahimovic, like big character players, but can also really, really impact a team. They don't seem to. Harry Kane doesn't seem to. He's a player. He's a target man, and he gets the job done. But I don't necessarily think that Tottenham will miss him in the long term.
I think they've always built the team around him, and I just don't think he's.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
I know I bumbled a little bit there, but yeah. They've built the team around him, but he's not necessarily a player that
Can carry that.
back that up,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Whereas the three aforementioned, you would build a team around
Yeah,
them,
definitely.
and things like that. Mo Salah news? Seen the Mo Salah news?
Yeah,
£150 million flat rejected by Liverpool.
I'd have absolutely
Snapped their hand off. Apparently not confirmed, but apparently as of when we're recording Sunday night, they've gone back with an upped offer of 200 million, which is like another 33% on top for
A 31-year-old that's not had the best of 2 seasons. And I mean they're offering him £1.5 million a week.
I know, it's crazy money. And Chelsea, with Cole Palmer, have now surpassed £1 billion worth of spending under the new owner. I think how long he's only been the owner maybe a year, isn't it?
Yeah, just of 12
£1
months.
billion, and they are. Would you say they've got the value for money?
Well, I don't know. A couple of these players, I think they've overpaid. And Cole Palmer's a very talented player. I don't understand why City have let him go. They probably couldn't give him the game time that he wanted. But one thing that people are picking up on with Chelsea spending £1 billion, it's, for FFP, financial fair play, and all this stuff. They've also sold the most. They've accumulated nearly £270 million this transfer window in player sales. So
so the net.
Yeah, but they're still, still 700 million down. But they're still, they're still not brilliant in that sense that they need to. I say offset the cost. What they've done and what they've now banned is they staggered the payments, so there wasn't initially. So where they've maybe said here's 100 million, and they're putting all these players on 7-8 year contracts.
Yeah.
Crazy. Sterling is on a long contract on 350 grand a week.
Yeah.
So it's not just big money they're paying; it's big wages. But I know they've shifted a few off, but they've also
the long term investment. He must the new owner must be there kind of for the long term and must be willing to spend some of his own money, because if Chelsea don't get Champions League football, if Champions
they're not in it this year.
No, they're not in it. But if they don't secure it again this year and for next year, and they get knocked out of cups and things like that, and they continue to perform bottom half of the table, I know they're a big club, but sponsorship will slightly wane and things like that, and they will. They can. I mean, look at Leeds United in the 90s. They were like the biggest team in the world.
Yeah, I think they were Champions League 2002, and then how quickly they went.
Yeah,
I do think that could happen. I think it all depends what happens with FFP and how these payments have been staggered. And I think what they're going to have, I think what they've maybe done is they've gone out, they've overhauled the team, and then I think for the next 2 or 3 years they'll go for a bit of stability.
Yeah,
and build that way. He's an American owner. Probably doesn't fully understand the contracts, because a lot of American footballers and things like that, they get 10-year contracts.
Oh, right, okay.
They get long, heavy contracts, front loaded, 40 million guaranteed, and then 60 million spread over 10 years kind of thing, and things like that. Who knows? Time will tell with that one.
Formula One Monza Grand Prix. Did you catch much of it?
I did. I watched it all.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Opposite roles reversed this week. I didn't catch it, but I did see the highlights, which were probably all of about 4 minutes.
They've stretched that out, I think.
It's a track that never necessarily has piles and piles of action, just given the actual nature of the circuit. It's a very, very fast circuit, flat out for like 85% of the track. Really interesting first corner chicane, and then really interesting last corner, but it's not really overtaking. It's more
just flat out,
ready for a DRS zone. But there was a couple of interesting bits.
Yeah, it's good to see. Sainz qualifying first, Leclerc in third, Max splitting the two, and then Albon in sixth. I think that they're probably the biggest surprises of the qualifying.
Something that really, really did piss me off watching the qualifying is, and I think maybe Williams or some of the, because I don't know if our listeners know, if you don't already know, that your qualifying position or your finishing position in the Constructors' Championship the previous year dictates where your garage is on the pit wall for the following year. So the really lower rung teams are the first garage, and then Red Bull and Mercedes and whoever comes first, second, third are at the end of the pit lane. And obviously you do get a benefit from that when it gets to roughly 2 minutes to go. What happened yesterday is 2 minutes to go, everybody piled out of the garage, everybody backed up, and then Sargent and Albon didn't manage to get a flying lap in because they crossed the finish line afterwards. So I felt really bad for him, because I genuinely believe, I think he still would have qualified 10th, but I still think Sargent was unfairly he lost out a little bit on that, which I was disappointed with. Williams have always been known for an extremely low downforce car, really, really quick in a straight line. It would have been a track that would have benefited Logan Sargent as well, because technical ability wise, it's one of the lower technical circuits for a newbie. But I was disappointed for him.
Yeah, I think as a track, it's not the most exciting of races. You've got one, is that final corner, one long straight, and then the first two corners, and that is it.
Ferrari being Ferrari towards the end with a very, very nearly double DNF.
What I don't. So just to cover it. So Sainz held Max off pretty strongly. Probably lap 6 is where it looked like he was going to get him, but he didn't. Took till lap 15. Lap 31, nothing really happened between. Lap 31, Perez on Leclerc. Perez dipped onto the grass.
Yeah, so
That was almost George Russell-esque last week. But then he got him on the pit straight in the very next time round. And then lap 41 was when Lewis and Oscar Piastri.
yeah, I saw this and I noticed that Hamilton took responsibility on the radio, and not only that, after the race, which wasn't aired, but I've seen on social media since, he went immediately out of the car to Piastri's car and apologised.
It wasn't Lewis's fault.
Yeah, it was a racing incident. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't malicious. It was an accident. He took the penalty. It didn't matter necessarily in the end, and it did ruin Piastri's race, which is a shame for McLaren because they are trying to chase Alpine, who have had a poor weekend. Aston Martin, sorry, not Alpine, who have had a poor weekend. So yeah,
3 things. 14 laps led by Sainz at the start of the Grand Prix is the longest anybody has led a race other than Red Bull this year.
in my opinion, holding him up. And I know you said he defended well, but after lap 15, by lap 21, Max was 4.9 seconds clear.
Yeah.
So he's held him up for 15 laps, and then in 6 laps he's pulled out.
Yeah,
5 seconds.
5 seconds. Did you see on Thursday night after the driver briefing, all the drivers coming out of the debriefing room?
Saw that.
Did you pick up on at the end all the drivers coming out together?
And Lance was on his own
with his AirPods in.
Yeah.
Nobody seems to gel with him.
No.
Nobody.
He's an awkward guy. I follow him. I follow most of the drivers. In fact, I follow all the drivers on Instagram, and he's just weird. He's a weird guy.
There's rumours of him wanting to leave F1 to take up a career as a professional tennis player.
I fully support his decision.
Without knowing how good he is at tennis.
Without knowing, he could be a professional chess player for all I care.
Do you think?
Bring back Latifi.
God.
No, actually, I changed my mind.
Yeah. They'll not be. They'll just be having races behind the safety car. Social media is a beautiful place, and I just want to put this out there. But do you think there's a conspiracy for Red Bull? And what I mean by that is, in qualifying yesterday, drivers are having their lap times deleted, and on Max's last flying lap, he is well over the white lines, and nothing.
Oh, really? I've not seen this.
No investigation. No.
Is this on turn 7?
I believe so. Yeah.
So the turn 7's an interesting one because I thought that they were over the track limits on a number of occasions, but if you have a look at turn 7, I believe it's a double curb. So you've got a curb, and then you've got
an instep.
That kind of thing, and
it might not be because it's a flat out corner, so it might be the last. But there were drivers being investigated, and Max completely over, not even looked into.
Yeah,
it was not even noted. Nothing. Very conspiracy theorist,
interesting. Then again, I know Ferrari were being investigated for too slow of an outlap, and they were too slow, and they didn't get penalised. So whether it was just a warning shot for the rest of the teams,
and this is it. They seem to. I can't remember what race it was. It was Austria. There was something like 113.
Yeah.
No, 1122 track limits out of 1500, and not one of them was for a Red Bull.
Yeah.
It's very.
That being said, 10 wins in a row now for Max, which has never ever been seen in Formula One ever in the history of Formula One. I will argue that the RB19 is a unbelievable car, and Adrian knew it should be made to draw next year's car with his left hand. However, Max is driving impeccably. Yeah,
he's not making any mistake. We've seen it before. Lewis has made the odd mistake here and there when he's been out in the lead, and, little things. He's not He's not overshooting a corner. He's not getting, he's not under breaking himself. He's not, nothing.
Yeah.
He's every race.
And we saw something today that we haven't seen on this calendar, on this 2023 season so far. Guaranteed it was only, granted it was only for one lap, but Max actually defending against Sainz. When he overtook Sainz, Sainz was still on his gearbox for about a lap and a bit, and he defended really well as well. He is driving impeccably.
This was the Vettel theory, though. Vettel only ever seemed to win when he was in first place, and off he went.
Yeah.
And it's Vettel's record that Max has broken.
Yes.
So people have always argued, me, I'm a Lewis fanboy, but everyone's like, well, no one's arguing when Lewis dominated. Max is breaking either his own records or Red Bull / Vettel's records, who won 4 in a row. Lewis never won 4 in a row.
No.
Granted, he lost to Rosberg, his teammate, but it's Adrian Newey, even make him draw it blind. Also this weekend was the rematch that I was massively looking forward to in Liam Smith and Chris Eubanks Jr. On the undercard, you had local lad Dave Allen fighting Fraser Clark. Fraser Clark with 5 low blows, which after the U6 Daniel Dubois fight the week before, which was sort of, did U6 get a low blow, did he? And things like that. Dave Allen, to be fair to him, took all 5, didn't take long to want to get back at Fraser Clark. He didn't seem to want to throw much, but he ended up having to throw the towel in, retire, however you want to put it, perforated his eardrum.
Okay.
So, but Dave Allen's got a little kid now, same age as mine, and I think in the back of his mind he's been in fights before where he's bit half his tongue off and stuff like that and carried on, and he's not one to quit. And I just think part of me says that in the back of his head he wanted to get home for his kid.
Yeah.
Boxing's not the place to be for that.
Same kind of thing with Tommy Fury.
Yeah.
We discussed this last week, so I'm not going too much into it, but boxers have got to be raw, pure, primeval fighting machines that want to win, and the greatest boxers that have ever existed in the history of boxing have had that raw, almost animalistic want to win.
So Eubank and Smith is probably a very good analogy of this. Chris Eubank Jr., his dad, Eubank, fantastic fighter in the 90s. Unbelievable, one of the best to ever sort of grace the division. He's a boxer. He's had a very privileged lifestyle. He lives on the sandbanks in Bournemouth, drives a McLaren. This was before he's made his first professional fight. He's fighting Liam Smith, who comes from a family of fighters.
Yeah.
Scouts. All the brothers, Callum Smith, Paul Smith, they've all been world champions. They're fighters. And there's a difference, I think, between a boxer and a fighter.
Yeah.
And that's what you had here. Tommy Fury is probably a boxer. Yes, he might come from that travelling background, but he hasn't lived that lifestyle. And it's a shame. Smith, I think I showed you a video, he rolled his ankles, both ankles, quite severely. And you'd think then he kind of went into survival mode, knowing he wasn't going to win the fight. But then part of me says, why stand there and get punched in the face for the next 8 rounds if you're going to... He ended up losing in the 10th round. I think it just, he couldn't dodge anything anymore. He was getting hit quite cleanly. Chris Eubank looked sharp. He looked crisp. He looked everything that a boxer should look. They're 1-1 now. Smith put Eubank down in the 4th round. I'd love to see a trilogy. I think Eubank's the kind of person that won't let it happen. I've beat you now. What interest have I got in you?
Yeah.
Even though when he lost, he was begging for the rematch. You've got to take that now to see if you can win the trilogy. Rugby, there's been a few dropouts in a few of the squads, mainly the French squad that seem to be struggling with injuries at the minute. I think I'll cover it in a lot more depth midweek for the Rugby World Cup pre-event special, which will be out on Thursday. That kicks off on Friday with my beloved Wales kicking off their first game Saturday night, 8 p.m. US Open. Have you caught much?
Not caught any US Open.
Andy Murray went out second round. He's basically said that that's probably the last of his majors.
Yeah.
Since he came back from hip injury in 2019, he has not made a major last 16. He's gone out early in all of them. So he's still in the mixed doubles.
I think that's where he'll play for the next few years at least.
See it out in the doubles.
Exactly, yeah. He obviously has a love for tennis, and your love for tennis doesn't retire when you retire. He's 36 years old, and I know the courts are obviously wider for doubles, but is it more of an intellectual kind of part of tennis over a more physical? So singles is a very physical game.
Yeah, exactly that. I think you look at where he's, you look at where tennis is with Alcaraz. You still got Djokovic in there. You've got these big hitters that still there. Djokovic was 2 sets down in his last game and came back still. He lost 6-4, 6-4, then 6-1, 6-1, 6-3 wins. So, when you've got someone at his age, he's 36, same age as Murray, that's still with that kind of longevity in him, and Murray struggles with that. He I think for him, he has to set up around the doubles. That's just how it is. Alcaraz is still in it, defending his US Open. I think it's going to be an Alcaraz Djokovic final. I can't see anything else at the minute. He beat Evans in the last round, Dan Evans. So I think there's no more British people left in the singles. I think Alcaraz and Djokovic are to see the tennis world out for the next. I think Djokovic will pass on the mantle, and it'll be Alcaraz for the next 10 years. Or as long as he's 20 years old. It could be 15 years. I can't see anyone that's carrying the kind of power, presence, and know-how that he's got.
Mm-hmm.
Last weekend saw the end of the World Championship Athletics. Great Britain getting 10 medals. I watched an awful lot of this, and it felt like they got a lot more, I'll be honest. There was a lot of positive things happening. 2 goals, Katrina Johnson-Thompson in the heptathlon, and Kerr in the 1500, who he physically and literally threw himself over the line for that win. 16 years of training went into that one race kind of thing. He just threw himself over the line. So 3 silvers, 5 bronze. There's a couple of medals in there for the women's relay teams. All around a really good World Championships, to be fair. There was a young American female won the women's 100 metres.
Yes, I saw that. Mm-hmm.
And reading about her, quite a troubled upbringing, very much the underdog through her career. But the thing is, as well, that was her first major final, took gold, and the company she was in, with the Jamaicans and things, I mean, incredible.
It wasn't impressive, and without sort of disrespecting her, and physically, she wasn't as physically large or as physically more sort of toned or muscular or defined as the other competitors. And me knowing very little about athletics anyway, especially women's 100 metres, but I wouldn't have put money on her as just to look.
No, she isn't very tall. She isn't, this big.
Yeah, because Usain Bolt's like, 6 foot something daft.
Yeah.
So he's got like 5 foot something legs.
Yeah, and she, she didn't. And one thing I was looking at, which is very weird, I saw it mainly through Patterson's 800 metre bronze for Great Britain, is when you're seeing these runners and they're picking up pace, you've got 2 types of stride. You've got people that go for like, and this is what Richardson does. She goes for like the high knees and power off, and you've got people that have got the long legs and the long strides.
Yeah.
And it was just fascinating to sort of pick up on that. Ryder Cup is upon us at the end of the month. Zach Johnson, the United States captain, has picked his club captains. He's gone with Brooks Koepka and Justin Thomas. There's still sort of qualification process going through for some of the players. Matt Fitzpatrick had the lead going into the European Masters this weekend, but he has lost that. He came third today. So over the next couple of weeks, it'll be interesting to see who makes the European squad for Italy for the Ryder Cup. Very much looking forward to that. The last thing probably to cover, there was a college volleyball game in America. So college, so university for us. Volleyball game. Nebraska beat Omaha, and they set a record for the highest attendance at a game.
Okay. I love these little last minute, like, curveball fun facts that you bring to the podcast.
Now, bear in mind, the biggest attendance for an American football game isn't an NFL game, it's a college game. And it's something silly, like 113,000.
College football's ridiculous, like, though, isn't it? Like,
the following.
So, a college volleyball game versus Nebraska
Against Omaha.
Okay.
And it overtook a Barcelona game.
Volleyball. I don't even know. Like,
keep note with 15,001.
In my head.
Old Trafford's 80,000. Wembley's like 85,000.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the stadiums that have you ever been to, like Manchester Arena?
Yeah.
Yeah, so sort of again.
In my head, how many people can you fit in a sports hall? But I know that the answer is going to be ridiculous. Go, hit me.
I'll let you. It's not in a sports hall. It's in a
Proper stadium.
It's called a Memorial Stadium.
I don't know. I don't even know. Like, how much can volleyball really? How many people can volleyball attract? The family and the extended family of each player. So I don't know. Like 12,000. I don't know. You tell me.
92,003.
What were 92,003 people doing?
Just can you imagine as well? I mean, a volleyball court isn't going to be. It's not 100 meters. Like a football field and things like that. So it's going to be like it's going to be tall. It's going to be people aren't going to be able to see half the game. But they got 92,003 people at the game.
Wow.
Incredible.
And so, very quick conversation around, like, do they get paid, or is it kind of like for draft or that kind of thing?
So,
because in my head, most people keep going on about it, especially in the light of the World Cup, Women's World Cup, is men earn X amount of money because they bring in X amount of money. If a Nebraska volleyball game is bringing in 93,000 tickets, you would assume that they're going to be paid accordingly.
Here's where it gets very complex, and I that for a couple of minutes. So back in the 90s, there's this program that's on Netflix, and it covers around crime within sport.
Okay.
One of the episodes is a guy in the 90s. He was early 90s. That he's going to be bigger than Michael Jordan. This guy, he's that good. And basically, what he was doing was they were all on scholarships, so they got their room paid for. Everything was covered apart from their food and fuel.
Yeah.
But they were getting like $200-300 a month.
Yeah.
Which back then was a little bit more, but probably not enough considering, they were struggling to eat a lot of the time. So he started to get involved in betting. So people would say, look, we'll pay you 10 grand. We're that team there, you should be beating them by 30 points. Only beat them by 6. So in American sports, betting is very different. It's about a spread. You can, win within 6 points.
Yeah.
So he'd still win, but he'd keep the gap or make the gap higher or lower, and they'd give him 10 grand. There was this game where he got injured very, very early, and they ended up losing. So he was chasing back, trying to pay the 10 grand.
Okay.
All came out. Rules have changed now, predominantly, so that your big players like Ohio State, etc., that are on big scholarships that are going to be next big things to draft. They don't necessarily get paid. They don't get contracts or anything like that. But their education, everything's paid for, all their food.
Okay, and to be honest with you, I've seen the university fees or college fees in America. They're not £9,000 a year like they are in the UK. You can run $300,000, $600,000 in a Ivy League school. So it's a big thing. But 93,000.
They do get some money because some of them have got really nice cars, and a lot of the college teams are sponsored by Under Armour, Nike, so they've got all the gear.
Yeah.
So they don't need to. And there's a couple of teams that have got former NFL Super Bowl winning managers as their managers.
Yeah.
Because financially they can still pay in £5 million a year.
Interesting.
Because they're getting 70,000 people every game.
Yeah.
And they're not paying players.
Yeah. I enjoy that. Maybe we should do one of these every week.
I'll keep my eye out for them.